Dr. Satyaprasad, shall we start?
Absolutely, sir. No problem at all. We can
Yeah,
start.
so that people will join because I was trying to
Sure, sure,
gather some crowd.
sure.
People seem to be busy. So,
No problem.
uh, so I think we will start.
Yeah.
Then
Okay.
the crowd may build up.
Sure. Can I share my
So,
screen?
yeah.
Because
Good,
people would have seen my profile.
yeah. So, good afternoon, everybody. So, I am very happy to welcome all of you for the first webinar in the series of webinar lectures organized by the uh, INAE Chennai chapter. And today's seminar is given by Dr. M. Satyaprasad. He is a Senior Vice President of Ashok Leyland. So a special welcome to Dr. Satyaprasad and all the fellows of INAE and young associates, as well as the members of the INAE Chennai chapter and other invitees and participants. So it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Satya Prasad very briefly. So I know him very well for many years and he has been my good friend. So Dr. M. Satya Prasad has been with Ashok Leyland since 2004 and is now a senior vice president and chief engineer in charge of bus, international operation and defense businesses. He had also headed various engineering functions in Ashok Leyland's product development in the past. From 2000 to 2004, he was with the Dana Corporation USA, where he was senior principal engineer, advanced products, and lead CAE specialist. From 1997 to 2000, he served as a design engineer, nuclear engineering at Babcock and Wilcox, Canada. His first stint with industry was with Larsen and Toubro, where he was employed as a marketing and application engineer for earth-moving machinery between 1990 and 92. Dr. Satya Prasad holds a PhD in mechanical engineering from Memorial University, Canada in 1997, where he received the Governor General's Academic Gold Medal for the best doctoral thesis. His MS was from the University of Regina, Canada in 1993 with great distinction. He did his undergraduate from the College of Engineering, India in 1990 and was ranked third among the 120 graduating students from the Mechanical Engineering Department. Dr. Satya Prasad is a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineers. So he has 22 patents granted in his name and he has around 16 journal papers and more than 30 conference publications. So he is a very practical engineering man. So I have great pleasure in inviting Dr. Satya Prasad to give his lecture on retaining individuality in globalization.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Satya
Is my
Prasad.
screen visible?
Yeah, yes, your slides are visible. So you can go ahead.
Excellent. Excellent. Honestly, to me, the number of participants are less
Hello?
important. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah, you are
Hello?
audible.
நான்
Okay, good,
அனுப்புறேன்
good.
இப்ப இமெயில்ல நான்
So
உங்களுக்கு அனுப்புறேன். Okay, right.
the question is, even if there is one good audience, that certainly merits the time spent. As I had promised, my presentation would take roughly an hour. It is 100% original work, and I'm sure that you would find several concepts presented very transformational in the way you look at the world and the way you look at yourself. Uh, you know, Thomas Friedman had said the world is flat, but when I investigated, I found that the world is not very flat. It is quite bumpy, and we are pulled by the forces of capitalism and free market. So, as an individual, how should we handle? How should we position ourselves? Our grandfathers used to tell, in our days, it used to be like that, everything. So, the question is our personal disposition dependent on the surroundings that we are in, or can we stand apart as an individual and hold our head high? I did some investigation, and this covers a significant part of life and profession, as you would be seeing. See, in life, what we see is only one half, or sometimes even less. These are some beautiful green shoots that could probably bear some colorful flowers and fruits. But when we see this beautiful green shoot, we see that we could surmise that there is something that we don't see, that is the root system. So to get a complete picture, we have to, synthesize what we could see and what we could surmise. So I am defining two terms here: agility, that is the ability to move about quickly and easily, and stability, like the root system in the previous slide, something that doesn't move or change that much, at least not apparently. So the agility is indicated by the yellow color, signifying morning sun, and stability, the tranquility of the evening blue sky. So throughout this presentation, we will be using these two colors: yellow for agility, activity, and blue for stability. Stand alone stability is of no use. This is a big rock in Mahabalipuram. God knows how many thousand years it has been like that. There is nothing much happening when there is pure stability. Likewise, when there is pure agility, like you see this, contained gas in a closed chamber where you have, continuous motion of the atoms and molecules, kinetic theory of gases, lot of activity happens, but nothing comes out really.
Dr. Satyaprasad,
Yeah, yes,
can
sir.
you move to full screen?
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, 1 second. I will just see what I could do. Is it okay?
Yeah, okay, right. Go.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so lot happens and nothing comes out. Now you may think that why am I broad brushing with two simple examples? That pure stability is not of much use and pure agility is also not of much use. We will, throughout the presentation, see a number of examples and case studies that build on this very simple concept. Another general broad brushed comment I want to make here is agility helps stability. For example, if you spin a top about the horizontal plane, the top is very agile, but about the vertical axis, the faster the top spins, the stable it is. And if you take our own planetary system, things are under constant motion for us to enjoy the stability. So there is a fine balance between agility and stability in the universe. See, these are all fundamental concepts I am laying down to drive home far, far more profound, underpinnings in profession and real life. Likewise, stability also helps agility. If you look at a cheetah, which is a very agile animal, it has a very fat, long tail that stabilizes it. On the right side, you see a Sukhoi aircraft, which is intentionally unstable but stabilized with control systems so that it is very highly maneuverable. So we saw in the previous slide, agility helps stability, and we see in the slide, stability also helps agility. And of course, you can transform agility to stability and stability to agility in certain systems. For example, you take a balloon and just remove the knot, and the balloon moves forward. There is an action and reaction. Now, when you look at any system, whether the system should be stable or agile is very situational. For example, if you go on a cruise ship, stability is very important. On the other hand, if you are an adventure seeking powerboat driving person, you don't want it to be as stable as a cruise ship. It has to be very agile. And we just saw that pure agility or pure stability may not be of great help, and there has to be some balanced coexistence, like a ship and the ballast weight, or like they say humorously, connoting to a duck, uh, like a duck be calm and composed on the outside, but on the inside paddle like hell. or the Tanjore doll, which has a stable base and an agile head, or like a bicycle. Slow cycle race is very difficult, and the faster you drive the bicycle, the easier it is to drive up to a point. So we define three important concepts here. First is agility, which is conformity, moldability, plasticity, whatever you call. And on the other extreme is called as para-stability, that is systems that actually become stronger with that adversity. In this picture, you see Hercules fighting with the Hydra, and for every head of the Hydra that Hercules cuts, two will grow. So the Hydra says, please cut my head, because cutting the head makes it stronger. Adversity makes it stronger. Or in our own Itihasa, the Vanara king Vali, when he fights with the opponent, he gets half the strength of the opponent. So Wally says, allow to fight. More recently, in children's parlance, the incredible Hulk, you mess around with the Hulk becomes very stronger. And in between these two, you have what is called as resilience, systems that can bounce back. It is neither very moldable nor it is anti-fragile. So these three are the basic systems with which we are going to elaborate the presentation. So here we call permanence as stability and change as agility, but to take a philosophical, view of this, Heraclitus said nothing is permanent but change, or recently Bob Dylan, nothing is so stable as change. So the question is, in modern parlance, in a fast-moving world, like Alice Adventures in Wonderland, Alice says, or I don't know, the Queen of Hearts or somebody says, this place keeps moving, so we have to keep moving in the other direction to stay where we are. The question is, are we actually chasing futile agility? And if you look at corporates, they always talk about, agile execution, agile processes, agile systems, but they conveniently ignore the other significant part of operation, which is called as stability. Now, before we get into the depth, we have to understand that if agility drives stability, there could be a starvation of purpose. One example that I would like to give always is Sherlock Holmes. He's a very agile person, but if he doesn't have a case to solve, he injects himself with cocaine, and he says, look, I need to get rid of the boredom of not solving a case. Of course, we all know about the genie who was kept engaged by trying to straighten the dog's tail. Right? We can't have agility driving stability. Now, at this stage of my presentation, you would think that why all these are being presented? What is the purpose? You would be seeing very soon. On the other hand, if stability drives agility, it creates purpose. For instance, Chhatrapati Shivaji was a very agile monarch, extremely agile. But his guru, Samartha Ramadas, was a very stable person. And the stability of Samartha Ramadas was the backdrop of the agility of Chhatrapati Shivaji. And Bhagavad Gita beautifully says, he who sees action in inaction, that is agility in stability, and inaction in action, stability in agility is a sage. And that's exactly what we are going to do in this. So we learned something. First, we learned that standalone agility and stability may not actually serve much purpose. And agility and stability should be reckoned as inextricable. They should complement each other. And they become wholesome only with each other and should not substitute for each other. And we also saw, although with a very broad brushed example, examples can never make a theory. Theory should lead to experimentation and verification. Experimental data cannot constitute a theory. So I had only given these experiments to drive home a point, but we will actually build very beautiful theories out of this in the next few slides. We also learned stability should form the foundation for building agility and not the other way around. Therefore, with this small backdrop, we construct a small equation. On the left, you see very highly stable system, perfect blue. And alpha, A for agility. So alpha is equal to 1, that is on the right side. It's a completely yellow system. It's an agile system, extreme 100% agile. On the left, you have 100% stability. On the right, you have 100% agility. And then you construct a small, simple linear equation based on alpha, which is called as the stability index, which is a combination of stability and agility. So if alpha is equal to 0, it becomes a perfectly stable system. And if alpha is equal to 1, it becomes a perfectly agile system. So what we have done so far is we have taken some very simple examples and we have built a small equation. Now the question is, the equation should be pressure tested. An equation is a representation of the truth. The equation is not the truth. No equation is the truth. It is our best approximation of what we perceive as the truth. Now let us see how this equation holds good under various circumstances. Let us pressure test. I'll give you some examples. Let's say you're going on vacation. If you are of adventurous type, you might go for bungee jumping or skydiving or something. You have very high value of alpha.
I have sent the email, sir. So there is a brochure. In that, you can click as a participant.
Professor, you can mute.
Pardon? To yahoo.com. Right.
On the other hand, if you want to spend a very quiet, couple of days over the weekend, you can also visit your aunt or your grandmother. So in between alpha equal to 1 and alpha equal to 0, you have a whole spectrum of alphas, that could conform to certain vacations. Or take, for example, reading material. If you look at your daily newspaper and store flyer, they excite you, right? What is happening in the world? Very high value of alpha. On the other hand, on the extreme left, if you look at your Bhagavad Gita, it is very stable. In the sense, if your grandfather bequeaths a Bhagavad Gita old book, you would say, don't touch it. It's probably 75 years old, 100 years old. The older it gets, the more precious it becomes. On the other hand, on the extreme right, you read your daily newspaper. The moment you read the newspaper, it can actually go to wrap, a kilogram of sugar or something, or it can be used for putting some atta and sifting it, or lining the bookshelf, right? So on the right, you see that it excites you, but its shelf life is very short. On the right. On the extreme left, you see that Bhagavad Gita doesn't excite anybody. Nobody comes and says that, you know what, I read Bhagavad Gita over the weekend and I'm really fascinated with it. And the sadder you become, the more you recline on the Bhagavad Gita. I'm just giving it as an example. It could be a Quran, or it could be a Zendavastar Bible, or whatever it is. So again, you see, in case of reading material, you can see that there is a spectrum of agility, stability, and you can't polarize something as purely agile and purely stable, and nothing in between. Take the case of government. If you look at the erstwhile Soviet Union, or even China for that matter, or India before liberalization, you had some kind of stability. On the other hand, if you look at some Pakistan or some Central American countries or some African countries, lots of things are happening. Don't ask me whether they are good or bad, but things are happening. There's a lot of agility. So the question is agility good or is stability good? We don't know. It is very, very situational. If you take enterprises, on the right, you see startups and skunk works. They can afford to fail because if you gain significantly. But if you lose, you can still recover. You don't lose much. But on the left, you have government departments which are not supposed to be agile, because government departments have a huge amount of accountability and they cannot afford to mess up things. So again, you see, when you have enterprises, you have a spectrum between alpha is equal to 0, which is pure stability, and alpha equal to 1, which is pure agility. And if you look at the expectations of any organization, you have a top management which has to have low value of alpha, and a working level which should be very agile, high value of alpha, and the middle management somewhere in between. Why? Because the top management has very high stake, right? They should have strategic advisors, think tanks, they should have leaders. Middle management should have managers, and working level should have foot soldiers. So you can again see that the agility stability operates as a spectrum, and not as standalone entities. By the way, I did tremendous amount of literature search, and I realized I was not at all happy. Therefore, all the material I'm presenting today is 100% original. It is not available in any literature anywhere in the world. If you look within the organization itself, on the left extreme you have culture, on the right extreme you have your after sales service and all these people, feet on the street people, and in between you have a spectrum of agility stability combination. No, when you have two companies that are coming together, a merger or an acquisition or a joint venture, these do not fail because of the right hand side. They fail because of fundamental differences in the culture. Even marriages for that matter, honeymoon, for example, has a high value of alpha, but being a proper grahastha has a very low value of alpha. It is not exciting. Janna samsara bandhanat. Right? It says that marriage actually comes with heavy responsibility. So alpha is very low for marriage, whereas for dating and for falling in love and for running around the trees and going on honeymoon, that has a very high value of alpha. What is happening is people put the high value of alpha in the Facebook and Twitter and everything and expect that the low value of alpha will take care of itself. It doesn't happen. So we have to understand that throughout you take any facet of life, you cannot rely on pure stability or pure agility. And the combination of agility and stability, the spectrum is actually contextual. So we learned a few things here, that agility and stability are degrees on the same spectrum. Okay, I humbly claim originality to this because I never saw any literature anywhere in the world talking about this. And one can be more important than the other, and that depends on the context and perspective. And we gave a very simple linear equation to show the spectrum nature of stability and agility. We are not happy. Any equation should be general. It should be applicable universally. So let us pressure test it further. I'm giving you dyads: spirituality, religion. You can say he's a religion bigot, he's a religion fanatic, but nobody says he's a spiritual fanatic or a spiritual bigot. So a lot of things, sorrow, exuberance, dharma, karma. Dharma is very stable, karma is agile. Right? Spouse, as I said, is very stable. Lover is very agile. Banyan tree is stable. IIT Madras has a lot of banyan trees. Banana tree is very agile. It comes and it goes. Father is very stable. Son is very agile. So you can actually see a number of dyads. Caste is stable. Casteism is agile. Right? Potential energy is stable. Kinetic energy is agile. So you can see literally you can spectrumize lots of things in life, and I will give you more dyads. Godfather, for example, the mafia don. He talks with a low voice. If you look at Al Pacino and Marlon Brando, Godfather, Marlon Brando talks, in a very husky, deep tone. Whereas his henchmen, they will go about breaking legs and whacking people, and they are very agile. Joint family is stable. Nuclear family is agile. Nuclear family, they say, we can go to the hotel whenever we want. And in a joint family, the moment you put your slippers, your grandma would guess you're going to the hotel and say, no, there is pare sadam with urga available, eat it, right? So if you look again, you would see that there is a spectrum between agility and stability. And I can even give you triads, intuitive, analytical, emotional, samadhi, tapas, japam, ideas, products, services, character, health, wealth. Mule, donkey, horse. Horse is very agile. Mule is very stable, humorous, jovial, rambunctious. Guru, Acharya, Upadhyaya. Right? Guru means remover of darkness. That's the ultimate in imparting knowledge. Whereas Upadhyaya is your 5th standard teacher or 6th standard teacher, whatever it is. Dharma, Shastra, law, right? You can give more triads actually. Ice, water, steam. Steam is very agile. You can propel locomotives, whereas ice is very stable. And you don't want the ice to melt. People are all very worried that ice is melting in the Arctic, right? Leader, manager, worker. So we have seen that our simple linear equation based on alpha, combining agility and stability, actually works, and it works really well. So if you are hiring somebody in an organization, if you want a very stable person, assess that person in terms of all the attributes on the left. If you want a feet on the street guy, the glib talker, the tie wearing, in Tamil they say, கழுத்துல டை கையில பை வாயில பொய், like that they say, somebody who goes and gets things done. Select the attributes on the right. You understand, right? Even if you take a family, one of your son would be like this, one of your son would be like this, or daughter for that matter, or you might have a child somewhere in between. Nothing is right and nothing is wrong, but we have to understand that they actually follow the spectrum. Here again, you see. So you see the point, when we are hiring people, we have to look at so many attributes. And by the way, these are not available in any textbook or any literature. So we learned something, that agility and stability spectrum is applicable in almost all walks of life. The question is, which is not superior? It is contextual. Now, we said there is
Satya Prasad.
Yeah.
Yes, can you come on video so that people will see you talking?
Oh, see, the problem is,
okay, your bandwidth is a problem, is it?
What I will do is, after I finish the presentation.
Okay, when the question answer session.
Question answer.
Okay. Right. So please continue.
I will continue. Okay. Now, let us do some more. 1 second. I don't know why it's not moving. Okay, good. Now, we said agility and stability is part of a spectrum. But sometimes there is a discord between agility and stability. Why? Why is there a discord? Let me give you some examples. You take, for example, human brain. It is very, very complex, and it is nature made, and nature keeps on printing brain after brain after brain. I don't know, millions and millions of brains every day, from the ant to the antelope to the human to the monkey to whatever you mean. Human cannot make a simple brain. Impossible. Well, you may say computer, laptop, all that. Nothing. It can't be compared to the brain. Whereas human beings can do something complicated. Now, a brain surgery is not complex. It is complicated. Now, the nature is not very perfect. The nature can make mistakes, and the human has to complement it by doing a brain surgery to correct the brain. There was this actress called Sridevi. She was otherwise pretty, but she had a problem with her nose. And she felt, if I correct the nose, then I can actually become very famous Bollywood actress. And so she had plastic surgery. And then she became very famous, So nature did not give her, at least she felt so, a good nose. And she went to a doctor who did a complicated surgery and gave her a beautiful nose. So when the agility of a human complements the stability of the nature, it becomes a complementary thing that coexists, and it is not a spectrum. It goes hand in hand. Right? A spectrum is not something that goes hand in hand. A spectrum is a spectrum. Next, this I call as the placebo effect. Right? Here, the agility stability has a problem. Now, there was this guy called Ekalavya in Mahabharata. Drona refused to teach him archery, so he built a statue of Drona, and he became an excellent archer. So the false Drona, the placebo Drona, gave agility and stability to Ekalavya. The real Drona came and got Ekalavya's right thumb as Guru Dakshina and destroyed the stability and agility of Ekalavya. Well, he was still stable, but the agility to shoot arrows is gone. So the problem is, here the spectrum is disrupted because the reality was much more damaging than the Maya. This is an extremely important concept. We all say that, I am Evatma, Ham Brahmasmi, Maya is bad, Asatoma Sadgamaya, lead kindly light, may I come out of darkness and all that. No. When you are completely enlightened, that is okay. But until you are enlightened, sometimes Maya can help you very much. And Ekalavya's example is where the imaginary Drona gave stability and agility to Ekalavya, and the real Drona destroyed it. So such kind of problems happen in the spectrum or lack of soul in the game. When Napoleon Bonaparte fought war, he was right in the battlefield, which means any mistake Napoleon does, he will most likely be killed or captured. So he maintained both stability and agility at the battlefield. But the spectrum gets broken when today the general sits in an air-conditioned room, looks at the monitor. No, the spectrum is broken, right? The stability is relegated to an air-conditioned room with a LCD or with a big monitor. Whereas the agility, that's the poor soldier, is in the battlefield. Not the case with Napoleon. So Napoleon maintained the spectrum of stability and agility. He did strategies right in the battlefield, right on the battlefield. Whereas today it is different. So when you break the spectrum, there is a problem. Or corrupt system. For instance, take India. You have fantastic motorcycles that can go at 150 kilometers an hour and all that. But you have corrupt cops, bad roads, signals that don't work, all kinds of things, drunk drivers. So when you have a motorcycle that is very agile, you should have systems that support it that are very stable. When you break the spectrum, then literally hell breaks loose, or lack of skin in the game. Lehman Brothers, for example, there was a guy Richard Fuld who was probably responsible for the collapse of Lehman Brothers. But he was given a golden parachute. He is still wealthy, he is still doing well. So when Richard Fuld did not have soul in the game and he disregarded the spectrum, the organization collapsed. On the other hand, when you have a Roman engineer, when the bridge collapses, the engineer also dies along with the bridge, like you see here. Now you compare Richard Fuld, the CEO of Lehman Brothers, the past CEO of Lehman Brothers, with the Roman engineer. Lehman Brothers collapsed. Richard Fuld is still a millionaire. Roman engineer makes a mistake. He dies along with the bridge because he is made to stand under the bridge and the army passes through the bridge. So when you have lack of remorse and lack of skin in the game, the spectrum gets broken. See, a bad CEO gets a golden parachute. We have been seeing, right? And sometimes we can be encumbered by legacy. 15 years ago, if you have a BlackBerry, automatically you are some big shot in the corporate environment. Why? The BlackBerry had this nice little thumb keyboard, which people found it convenient to send emails and messages. Today you don't need it, but BlackBerry is not able to come out of it. And look at where BlackBerry is today, right? And let us look at the world. When you look at all the outsourcing, your business process outsourcing, your software outsourcing, whatever it is, the West thought it can break the spectrum. It can break the spectrum, and they want to keep the blue part, that is alpha equal to 0, the stable part. What are the stable parts? Accounts, finance, R&D, technology, corporate management, everything. Now, what is the yellow part, the agile part? That is servicing over the phone, right? And manufacturing, your brown collar work. No, if they had been so brilliant, right? This was done by people who had studied MBA from Harvard, Stanford, INSEAD, you name it. In 2008, so many companies filed for Chapter 11, right? GM went bankrupt, Chrysler went bankrupt, Toyota went into red. If these people are so brilliant, why did they fail? Right? You buy organization and you ask the CEO, why did you buy that organization? They'll say, oh, we want to have an inorganic growth. And then after some time, the company gets into problem, they sell everything. And you ask the same CEO, why are you selling? He says, we want to concentrate on core competence. You see, this word jugglery is not going to help anybody. And these things failed because they did not pay attention to the spectrum of agility and stability, right? So West completely confused agility with liability and fluidity, right? And they said, let the Indians and Chinese do the dirty job. Now, you cannot have a transaction which is gradient based. It is not like a master and a servant relationship. So the China and India and the Mexico and the other South American countries were not looked by the Western Europe and America and Japan as equal partners. They said, look, we don't want to do dirty jobs, outsource it to India. And they thought they were doing us a favor. It's a colonial mentality. Like you're our BPO colony. Tomorrow, if we can't afford you, we will go to Indonesia. If we can't afford them, we will go to Philippines, Thailand, whatever it is. So there were terms like, in the West, I have heard people telling this when I used to be in that part of the world. I got Shanghaied or I got Bangalore, that is somebody in Bangalore or Shanghai taking your job. So till 1990, the West said, okay, their alpha was approximately equal to 0.5. They kept everything with themselves, manufacturing, R&D, technology, engineering, everything. And then they became greedy. And they told countries like China, they said, we are going to lower our alpha value. We are going to keep the stable part of the business, and the agile part we are going to give to companies like China. For example, if a child would want to play with a teddy bear, but an American child, which he or she buys from Walmart for $5 on, say, Thanksgiving Day sale or something like that, you have to realize that that teddy bear was made by probably another 5 or 10-year-old child somewhere in China under brutal conditions. So West demanded, by polarizing. Here you see this very clear dismemberment of agility and stability. And from 2000 onwards, China had started pushing back. He says, look, I am going to reduce the value of my alpha. And it is imposing on China, on the Western nation, you buy what I give. You can't demand. And China used to be a sweatshop, and now they have invested significantly on technology. So China had moved from a very high value of alpha to a lower value of alpha. Stability is very important. I want to convey the point because people are crying from the rooftops in corporate, agility, agility, agility. And I just want to give a counter view, stability, stability, stability. Now, many years ago, when Foxconn, I don't know if they still would make iPhones, Apple iPhones in China, they used to get $8 per iPhone. Whereas Apple will get a margin of $368 per iPhone. Where is $7 and where is $368? So the thinker gets a very high premium compared to somebody who sweats. So China learned it. They reduced their alpha level. And today, if you look at all the mobile phone industry decimated by the Chinese, look at all the companies, Oppo, Lenovo, Huawei, OnePlus, MI. 10 years ago, you would talk about Nokia, Sony Ericsson, Motorola, and all that. Where are they today? Right? They're not. So you have to understand that if you, when you say you, I don't mean you, anybody for that matter, tries to disregard the spectrum of agility and stability, it will, on its own, re-equilibrate like China is doing. Now, suddenly, US woke up and say, we have to rejuvenate manufacturing sector in US. And, a few years ago, Google arm-twisted Huawei by telling, we will not give you Android operating system. And Huawei said, go to hell, I don't care. I have my own operating system. I have my own apps. And I have a population of 1.6 billion, half of which if they buy mine, and they will surely buy the moment Google arm twists, suddenly patriotism will loom large in China and everybody would start buying Huawei. And Huawei said, go to hell. So the point is, China is proving that you cannot be arm twisted and spectrum cannot be broken, with the intention of arm twisting. Right. So today, the Americans are telling proudly made in US. They are trying to reskill. Think about it. Many years ago, Pittsburgh used to be the steel capital of US. Today, I don't know how many steel industries are there in United States. They destroyed. There's no public transportation in US also. So we learned something. What did we learn? If we intentionally dismember stability and agility, the consequences are devastating and unsustainable, and it could lead to very aggressive pushback And I gave the example of China. And why is this discord happening? Why are people dismembering agility and stability? See, they the corporates today want elasticity. They do not want any capital resource that can depreciate. In those days, when you have a company, you can identify a building with the company. You take the name board away from the company, and you just show the building. People can guess, yeah, this building belongs to this company. Today, it's not like that. We want to lease the building. We want to keep the permanent staff very low. We want to have contract workforce. There is a hyper elasticity of workforce. So the dispensability has actually increased. So permanent employees, permanent assets are considered as financial liability. So when you hire a contract engineer or contract employee, what does he or she think? Why should I be loyal to you? Tomorrow you can yank me out. So I need not be loyal to you. And gradient-based economy, that is disregarding the spectrum. A typical American says, 8, 8, 8. 8 hours I would work, 8 hours I would take rest, and 8 hours I would do what I want. Whereas in Bangladesh and even some parts of India and China, you have sweatshops where people are beaten. So the capitalistic economy as we see works only because of this gradient. Tomorrow, if the right side also becomes blue, the left side cannot afford to be blue. An instant gratification, right? I'm giving an example of home food versus fast food, right? Fast food is very tasty. It comes to you very fast, but it creates a lot of problems later on. So the urge for instant gratification creates the discord and makes people disrespect the agility stability spectrum. And when we distort the sanctity of something, that leads to discord between agility and stability. For example, you see a yogi on the left side. This guy is sitting in a very dilapidated place. Insects are crawling on this person, and he is in the highest state of spiritual bliss. Probably from this picture, he could be in samadhi. Now, what does the West do? They take this spiritually fascinating and commercially disgusting picture and turn it into this. And they call this as yoga. I'm doing yoga. You do yoga for peace of mind, right? You can't degrade, you can't destroy. See, the top is pure stability, and they have converted into vulgar agility. Some time ago, I was pretty amused to see young kids drinking beer and doing what is called as beer yoga, right? When we do such kind of perverted distortion, there is a problem. Today you see, for everything people drink. Virtue is out the roof, and they call Bangalore as the pub capital of India. It's a happening place. So you drink and go out of control, it becomes a happening place. And corporate fraud, absence of dharma. We have seen so many examples, right? Greed, lack of transparency, excessively complex organizational structure, arrogance, complacency. And we are a society driven by dopamine rush. We want to keep on checking our WhatsApp message, Facebook, how many likes that we get. Always there is some breaking news or other on the television. So we are being kept unproductively busy. So this is pure agility, useless agility. This is like your Brownian motion that we saw in the second slide, right? That's absolutely nothing but some kind of an instant gratification, right? This is actually breaking the agility stability spectrum. And like I said, there is a big confusion between infatuation and responsibility, right? Do you have all kinds of Valentine's Day, that day, this day? I don't know. Today, shamelessly, young kids are telling, hey, he's my boyfriend, she's my girlfriend. I don't know. Whereas on the right side, you see how many elders are there, it's properly done marriage, right? People talk about living together. So much of polarization of the spectrum towards so-called agility. And tabloid culture, again, high amount of unproductive agility. It's irrelevant, nothing. Who cares what Jennifer Aniston does or whatever, who dates whom doesn't matter, but we are constantly fed, and this is a problem which creates a discord in the sanctity of the spectrum that we spoke about. So we learned something from this. What did we learn? Thought leadership is very vital for stability. The top management in an organization need not be agile, in fact, must not be agile, but they should manage agility. And when we have partnership, right, it should be inclusiveness of well-behaved nation. And engagement should be noble, value-driven, and soulful. And today businesses are street-driven. We have to excite people. We have to keep on putting news, this news, that news, so that our share value, becomes, doesn't lose the value. We have funny terms like market capitalization, right? We should not have a free market that is exploitative. But there are certain challenges. So we learned about the sanctity of spectrum. Now, what is the problem? The problem is, the vested interests are so powerful that sometimes we have to just say, let sleeping dogs lie. There was a guy called Socrates who was killed because he was extremely brilliant and he asked all the inconvenient questions. So sometimes you have to let the fool be fool and not enlighten the fool, because the fool can become lethal actually. Next, we are becoming a law-oriented society, but we used to be a dharma-oriented society. There is a huge difference between law and dharma. By the way, this is not available in any book or any literature. I'm repeating myself. And, you can see there is so much of difference between law and dharma, right? If you have more law, then there is not much role for dharma. And if you have a lot of dharma, you don't need much law. That is why the ancient law was called as Manava Dharma Sastra, Manava Dharma Sastra, Manusmriti, because these were all derived from dharma, right? And righteousness is a gray area, like I was talking about Ekalavya, right? Dronacharya was a very enlightened person. Why did he ask the right thumb? Right? There is a story behind it. The question is, the path of dharma is very, very difficult. But you know what happened? Drona asked his student his right thumb. And Drona's student Drishtadyumna beheaded Drona. So what you get comes back to you in multiples. Like they say, I don't want to use the word. They say karma is like some animal. You know what the animal is. It comes back and bites you. So Drona asked only for right thumb from a student, and one other student demanded Drona's head itself. So we don't know what is right and what is wrong. Dharma is very gray. Take for example United States, right? India is as democratic as USA, but USA says who cares? With EU, in the European Union, it has great relation, telling we share democratic values. And then China violates fundamental rights, human rights all the time, but USA is indifferent, right? USA has alliance with Arabs and also with Israel, and Arab doesn't get along with Israel. So you see, what is right and what is wrong is very, very difficult. It becomes very debatable, but law should be a derivative of dharma, and that is enduring, and we are losing that. Law is becoming a substitute for dharma. There is another problem also. Our innate trait also causes a problem in disrespecting the agility stability spectrum. If you look at the brain structure itself, we have a very reflexive brain called as the reptilian brain. Suppose a mosquito sits, you don't think too much, you just whack it out. Whereas if I give you a problem in calculus, you may spend days or weeks trying to solve it. So the neocortex, or the rational thinking brain, takes a lot of time to process. Whereas the reptilian or instinctual brain spontaneously responds, and you have to make decision with these three parts of the brain, right? Somebody says nothing in the heart, it's a compliment. If somebody says nothing in the head, then there's a problem, right? And what we call as head is this neocortex, the folds that you see here. So I'll give you an example why decision making is very important. Let's say you are learning to play a mridangam or a tabla or a keyboard. You start with your neocortex, that is the thinking brain. You understand every key of the keyboard and then you practice. And once you practice, it becomes a part of your instinct. It becomes your extended self. It becomes effortless. On the other hand, right, this is an actual picture of somebody wanting to commit suicide by jumping on the tracks and somebody saving. So what you should do is you should first save the person. You should be agile. Then you should appeal to the person's emotion, give him a hug and pacify. And then lecture him on life and living. When he's about to jump on the track, you cannot say that, look, Bhagavad Gita told this, Ramayana told this. By the time you finish the sentence, he would already be dead and gone. So when it comes to playing a piano, it goes from the thinking brain to the, to the instinctual brain. Whereas when it comes to saving a person, the decision starts from the instinctual brain and goes all the way up to the thinking brain. So now how am I going to respond for day-to-day problems, right? So we are constantly being hijacked by the emotional part of the brain, a part called as amygdala, which plays a role in decision making. So we are always driven by reason and passion. Reason is pure stability and passion is pure agility. And somewhere in between, you have emotion, which is, uh, like a Magdeburg hemisphere. It is pulled on one side by reason and other side by passion. So decision making is very important. And if you look at ancient Indian scriptures, I took a week to make this little chart. You have antakaranam. How do you make decision? You use 4 ingredients. Manas, which is emotion, buddhi, which is rational brain, chitta, which is your memory or impressions, and then ahankara, which is something that propels you to do your karma. And you can somewhat map it with the modern brain structure. And you have Vishaya, Sastra, and then you should have Vichara, where you inquire, and then you have Viveka, the power of discrimination, and then you have Prayasa, which is effort. Together you get some willpower, and then you have to strengthen willpower with Vairagya and Abhyasa, and you should be propelled by strong Sattva. And you also have your karmic cycle. You have your Aghami karma, Sanchita karma, Prarabdha karma. You see how complicated it is. Of course, you have your Karmendriya and Jnanendriya, right? All this goes towards your decision-making process. So decision-making is not easy. That is why, some fairly good people whom we have respected have gone to jail. Many years ago, when Professor Clayton Christensen, who used to teach the management students at Harvard, was addressing the graduating students, he said, look, I don't know how many of you would manage to stay out of jail. Now, this is pretty paradoxical because it is very difficult to get into Harvard for an MBA. And the professor says, I don't know how many of you would manage to stay out of jail. Then he goes on to say, look, Jeffrey Skilling, I know him very well. He's a good guy. But he made mistakes somewhere along the road. Dominic Strauss-Kahn, he was trying to run for the president position in France, and he was honey trapped. Chanda Kochar, we all know, she's in the news for all the wrong reasons. And recently, this lady, Chitra Ramakrishna, believing some kind of a weird godman. I mean, where have these guys mortgaged their brains? The problem is not that. The problem is they had not been able to operate on a spectrum. They never understood the balance between agility and stability. They polarize themselves more towards agility. They want to be in the news. They want to make more money. They want to take decisions. That is pure agility. On the other hand, going to a Vipassana camp or going to a retreat and meditating or writing Sri Ramajan 1,008 times, that is stability. So when the spectrum is broken, then you can have very devastating consequences. And Taittiriya Upanishad talks about Panchakosa, and it says that the happiness that you get out of intellectual reasoning is far more enduring than what you get out of material consumption. If I eat a jalebi, the jalebi taste lasts for only few minutes. The moment it goes down the throat, my mother always says, "Tondaki kizhapona naragam." If it goes below the throat, it is hell, right? And it comes out in a pretty unpalatable form. Right? If you look at Taittiriya Upanishad also, it says the intellectual reasoning is a better way to be happy. and that is stability. So we learned a few things. We are more complex than we think we are, because agility and stability are very much intertwined. Modernity makes things very complicated, right? And agility can be purchased, stability can't be. Pursuit of happiness, like I showed the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli, it's okay so long as it is enduring. Our ancient schools of thought seem to have given us some good guidance. So what should we do? What is the way ahead? So as we look at the future, this is called as, a Greek god Janus. The god has two heads. One looks at the future, one looks at the past. We have to constantly keep looking at the past as we move towards the future. So the question then is, should I conquer places to anchor myself as the emperor, or should I anchor myself by conquering myself? My dear colleagues and friends here, it is very, very difficult for self-mastery. It's very difficult. Why? Because nature has given us two things. We are born with intelligence, but we acquire willpower or self-control through prayasa, through effort. And success depends less on intelligence and more on self-control. And wisdom is a combination of intelligence and self-control. So unless we have enabling system that helps develop self-control, and certainly your WhatsApp or your Facebook or your Twitter or your Orkut or your Quora or your Instagram is not going to help us develop self-control, right? Or your television, tabloids, or the nation wants to know kind of debates are not going to help you with this. What should we do? Frankl says that if everything is removed from a person and the person stays naked, there is one thing that cannot be removed. That is the attitude under any circumstance to choose one's own way. I urge you all to read Frankl's book called Man's Search for Meaning, a fascinating book. So the question is, between Roy Baumeister and Viktor Frankl, they say we have a choice and we have to judiciously, it's self-reinforcing, right? You do something good happens. You do more good happens within yourself. So the question is, we can have less intelligence or more intelligence. We can have less self-control or more self-control. If somebody is blessed with a lot of intelligence and a lot of self-control, they are paragons, very rare. But even if somebody has less intelligence and more self-control, that is pretty sufficient. That is why Thiruvalluvar said, Devata lagadanam, even if God doesn't bless you with something, this is intelligence given by nature or God or whatever it calls. This is not God given. This is something you make out of yourself. Muyarchitan meivarutha kulitaram. You will attain higher level in life by your own effort. So one need not worry about what his or her IQ is. Like, Sarasate says, look, I practiced for 37 years, 14 hours a day, and I'm very upset. People call me genius. How dare they call me genius? I worked very hard. It just didn't land on me. And we don't have to compare ourselves with others. We can become better and better humans. Like Sergei Bubka, right? He kept on breaking his own records so many times. Or like Ekalavya or Srinivasa Ramanujan, with intelligence, self-control, and management of passion, we can become autodidact, that is self-taught, right? We can learn good things. And of course, there are 9 steps that Professor Shoji Shiba had given. I'm not going to go into detail, but this would be made available to all of you. Okay, so there are certain good habits in profession. Okay, I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, the question is, we have things in life that are interesting and not interesting. We have harmful things, useful things, and useless things. The question is that, greatness is doing non-interesting, not interesting, useful things. If you ask a brain surgeon, are you getting job satisfaction? He or she will look at you with a puzzled look, telling, what are you asking? I'm saving lives here. Brain surgery is not easy. It's very, very complex and complicated. And, I am at my wit's end to save the life of the patient. who has entrusted his or her life in my hands. So don't talk to me about job satisfaction, right? So even Katha Upanishad says the same thing, right? Driven by purpose. That's why they say genius is infinite capacity for taking pains. The genius is patience. That's what Isaac Newton said. So there's no silver bullet for success, right? This is Japan after atom bomb, and pretty soon Japan, the same place became like this. This is resilience. Mankind can bounce back. This was before. This was during the tsunami, and 1 year later, the same place. Well, you never would even think that tsunami happened here, right? So when you look at even the ancient Indian scriptures, you're blessed with lots and lots of treasures. I'm not going to go into the Upanishads because those could be read by yourself. But all I want to tell is precious gems available. I will just give you one example. In Vayu Puranam, there's a beautiful sloka. Alpaksharam asandigdam saravat visvato mukam astobam anavadyancha sutram sutra vido viduhu. This is the sutra lakshanam. What is a sutra? Alpaksharam. That is brevity, conciseness. Asandigdam, it should be unambiguous. Saravat means it should have essence. Visvato mukam means it should give meaning from all directions. Astobam means no hyperboles, right? Anavadyancha means it should be flawless. This is the Sutra Lakshanam. Now, don't you think a PhD thesis or the journal paper that you write, if it follows this sloka, it will turn out to be good? So we learned a few things. We have to manage agility with stability, and we should take lessons from our heritage. Agility should evolve from stability, and we should have a contemplative outlook as well as an executional outward outlook. Thought leadership is must, be it academia or be it industry. We should learn to evolve from the right and wrong to what is appropriate. When Krishna told Yudhishthira, tell Aswattama iti narova kuncharovar, Aswattama hataha kuncharaha. Krishna did not encourage Yudhishthira to tell lie. He said, look, Yudhishthira, speaking truth is your local dharma. Winning the war is a global dharma. Global dharma is superordinate, or your local dharma of speaking the truth is subordinate to a global dharma. So let us act in an appropriate fashion. That's why we have to go from intelligence to wisdom, and from a comfort driven to a purpose driven society, from a law driven to a dharma driven society, from a right driven to a responsibility driven society. We have human rights commission, we don't have a human responsibilities commission, right? We have a statue of liberty, we don't have a statue of responsibility. The question when Krishna says karmanyeva adhikaraste mafaleshu kadachana karma phala heturpur mate sangus akarmani, he says don't worry about what you get. Who cares about your rights? Care about your responsibility, and whatever you get is an incentive. So know thyself, right? Edward Witten said, I can understand Big Bang but not human consciousness. Or like Yogi Berra, humorously says, future is not what it used to be. So I am ending my presentation with this slide by quoting Rigveda, Ano Badra Kritavo Yantu Vishwataha. May noble thoughts come to us from every direction. Character cannot be built by law, it could only be built by dharma. It's a lonesome but fulfilling journey. Before I end my presentation, I will tell a very small story. In 1950, there was a small boy of 14 years. So this boy was called and told, look, he's a Brahmin boy. This boy was told, look, your father has died. Go and tell the neighbors that, your dad is no more. So this boy did not know what death was. He hopped and skipped with his sister, who was at the time 11 years old, and went and told, my dad has died, my dad has died. He did not know what death was. And before dying, the dad, who was probably in his mid-40s, told the 14-year-old kid, look, I have around 10 or 13 rupees under my pillow. With this, you can do the 3-day karma. This was in 1950. And after that, I don't know what you're going to do. And somehow the 3-day karma was done, not the 13-day karma. And then this kid literally had to beg for food. Okay? And he got good marks in SSLC. And this kid got admitted into Polytechnic. And the principal said, pay 15 rupees fees tomorrow and join the Polytechnic. This kid did not have the fees. So he went around begging 25 paise, 15 paise, 50 paise, 1 rupee, and all that. And next day he came to the principal and said, sir, I tried very hard. And this kid was only 17 years old. He told the principal, sir, I was able to collect 13.5 rupees. 1.5 rupees, there is a shortfall. I don't know what to do. The principal looked at this kid with admiration and he said, boy, I am amazed. You are able to collect 13.5 rupees, fatherless child. I am going to put that 1.5 rupees for you. So the principal put 1.5 rupees, and this kid finished his Polytechnic, okay, and joined in 1955 Integral Coach Factory, and grew up to become a production engineer, a class 1 officer, and ended up getting medal from the then Railway Minister Madhavrao Scindia. He got lots and lots of accolades and awards. He was a beautiful singer. And that kid died 2 weeks ago at the age of 86. And I reverentially dedicate it to that great person, my father, Mr. Mangalaraman Iyer, this presentation. Thank you very much for listening. It is a great honor being here and talking to you about this original research of mine. Thank you so much. I'm open for any questions, and they can come in video.
Thank you, Dr. Satyaprasad, for such enlightening lecture. Of course, the floor is now open for questions. Dr. Nandita Dasgupta will be moderating that session. But before that, I just wanted to have some comments and also ask a
Thank
few
you very
questions.
much for that very thought-provoking and inspiring talk. We have a little bit of time only.
Nandita, can I ask you a question?
Questions from the
Yeah. Okay, so I will just see. I just wanted to know this stagility, this portamento was coined by you, or it is there already in the dictionary?
No, I coined it, and then I did a Google search and realized that people who fly these model aircrafts also use the term. So it was something that was reinvented by me.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing is, whether this balance between stability and agility. I think it is both temporal and spatial. I mean, the type of that coefficient alpha changing from 0 to 1 will change with age, will also change with place.
Absolutely.
And I mean, is it possible? Of course, you said that the way ahead and so on. Is it possible to really change this coefficient? And then I don't think the linear relationship is very good, like the law of mixtures and things like that. But I think there may be a better nonlinear relationship, which would perhaps model this problem, the balance. So that's my comment. Your comments.
See, the expression is a very heuristic expression. It is not a mathematical expression. It is to say that there is pure stability, there is pure agility, and there is a combination in between the two. And the world has not looked at the combination. They all keep talking about agility, 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 as if agility is one perfect isolated entity sitting. So I wanted to challenge the world and say that you guys are wrong. There is a spectrum. And then I investigated on the validity of the spectrum at all conditions. And I realized under certain conditions, the spectrum is broken. And then I brought forth the consequences. And then I said, there is no way you can boil the ocean. You can't change the society at all. You don't have to. You can change the individual, that is yourself. And what is the way to change? What are the support mechanisms? So that was the basic thought process behind my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to continue on this point, do you think that this coefficient alpha, that is also time varying, I think when one is young, maybe alpha is close to 1, agility aspect is much higher. And then, I mean, somewhere along the way, maybe it reaches a peak. And then as one grows older, it again falls down to a more stable or contented lifestyle.
Yeah. You look at cricketer Venkat Raghavan, when he was playing in the quartet, spin quartet with Bedi, Prasanna, Chandrasekhar, he was very agile. His alpha was very high. Then he retired from cricket and he became an umpire. His alpha became very low. So you are right. It is also time dependent, right?
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other question?
I think there is a comment by Mr. Sudarshan Srinivasan.
Yeah, can
Yeah,
somebody
please go
read
ahead.
it? I'm not able to. Yeah, here it is. I can also think of one more analogy in the field of addiction. Dopamine. Yeah, absolutely. Dopamine versus serotonin. Dopamine versus endorphin. Absolutely, you're right, Mr. Sudarshan.
Any more comments or questions?
Can I make a comment here, Professor Nandita?
Yeah, please, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So you talked. So this is in line with Professor Narayanan and Professor Nandita's question. That with growth.
Can you raise your voice or come near the mic?
When you're young, or when a company is new, with less number of people, less growth, company is more agile. But as it grows, it builds up some inertia to change itself so quickly, and they become more and more stable because they get your core competence, and more expertise comes into the company. That means they become expertise in a particular area, particular field, or particular production, and therefore they start losing agility.
Yes.
As you said in your talk, there should be a right mix of agility and stability, and the agility should be bought in by the young new generation and new recruits in the company. The right choice is to make a balance based on the environmental factors where you are in. It can also change suddenly based on the environmental factor. For example, a war can change whether you are stable or agile.
Absolutely.
So there are a lot of factors that need to come into that equation. That has been put there. That's the comment.
Absolutely. That's a very, very brilliant comment, Mr. Ali. I fully agree with you. You're right.
Right. Thanks.
There are no
Any
further
other
questions.
comments?
No more questions, I think.
So then, Farooq, possibly you can propose the vote of thanks.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Thank you all. It is a pleasure to listen to this talk, which is very different from our regular, technical talks that we had, and it also gave us a new direction into having a mix of, agility and stability, with a lot of examples from our ethnic literatures, and also from the world perspectives that we had. From various examples are given so that we can understand the differences and the mix that we need to find between agility and stability. I thank you, Dr. Satya Prasad, for giving us this talk. It was very fantastic and nice. We would like also to thank the INE headquarters for arranging this online platform, for giving us this opportunity to express ourselves through online, and also for creating the flyer for the speaker. Thank you very much. And lastly,
Professor, I'll just make one small comment. This meeting itself is an example of the spectrum. Suppose you say some Kamala Hassan or Rajinikanth or Aishwarya Rai is coming and giving a WebEx, you would see 1,000 people and you would run out of bandwidth. But somebody like me talking an in-depth analysis of agility, stability, it doesn't really entice people. So you again can see how the spectrum is working here also, right? You understand?
Yeah,
People want something exciting.
we were sorry for that. We could not arrange much speaker and much audience here, but yeah. So we will try to increase our ability to bring in more participants in the talks. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So let's thank all the speakers who have been here for last 1 hour. With their time schedules on a Saturday, they have come. Thank you very much to all of you. And finally, let me thank Professor Narayanan for arranging this talk and Professor Nandita Dasgupta for moderating this. Thank you very much. Thank you all.